What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so in this video, before I go forward, I want to give a big shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, the brother Robert Mason coming through with yet another donation to the channel via the PayPal. Longtime fan of the Golden State Warriors. And I share his opinion about the mistakes that the Warriors front office has made that I believe will ultimately lead to quite a dry spell after the Stephen Curry era comes to an end, which is closer to its finality than people tend to want to believe. Okay. Now, it's a good thing that they did sign Jimmy Butler. I do believe that he temporarily extends their championship window, but I believe that the Warriors' championship window could have been extended much further had they not made some of the bad moves they've made in recent years. First of all, I want to go all the way back to when the organization made a decision to go with Kevin Durant over Draymond Green. Now, I know what people are going to say, and I know I sound a bit hypocritical because we've been critical of of Kevin Durant going to the Golden State Warriors. And we made a point of showing how Kevin Durant's overall legacy and accomplishments are not as great as they should be when you look at the fact that since he departed the Golden State Warriors, he has failed to make it to another conference finals, let alone a finals, let alone an NBA championship. But having said that, part of that was, yes, Kevin Durant's a great player, but Kevin Durant, to me, is now on the same level as a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant, a Shaquille O'Neal, a Steph Curry in many ways, and dare I even say a LeBron James. Those types of players are cornerstone players to championships, right? Kevin Durant is essentially the final piece to a great team. He fits into a certain franchise as far as elevating them to become that championship piece, which, by the way, I think if he went to the Houston Rockets, he would elevate them to being a contender. I don't know about champion, but definitely a contender. If the Golden State Warriors had chosen chosen Kevin Durant over Draymond Green, I think that you could always get somebody who can, at the very least, replicate much of what Draymond Green does, and you still win a championship. Because even without Draymond Green, Kevin Durant would still be pretty much a cheat code. So the fact that they chose Kevin Durant over Draymond Green, I know people can say, well, they still won a championship, but I think if they had Kevin Durant, they would have won more than just one championship. And by the way, that championship that they did win in 2022, if you go back and look at the footage, if you go back and look at their finals, Draymond Green was a non-factor. He had a horrible NBA Finals 2022, so he wasn't even really a factor into them winning that title in that series. Another mistake that this organization made is them choosing, once again, a player who was on the cusp, or well, I shouldn't say once again, but once again choosing Draymond Green over a player who I think was on the cusp of becoming at least a borderline all-star level player before his mentality and his growth was ruined by Draymond Green directly. Jordan Poole. Now, I know people want to say, well, look at Jordan Poole in Washington. Well, yeah, but that's not the same Jordan Poole that we saw at the beginning of the 2022-23 season or during the playoffs of the 2022 season. That Jordan Poole was a different guy. He was ruined by a guy who's supposed to be a leader in Draymond Green, but unfortunately, he was envious of Jordan Poole, just as he was envious of Kevin Durant. You sucker punch your teammate. Never really paid a price for that. But you got nerve to run around here crying about people think you're an angry black man. Oh, really, nigga? You wonder why. Go look at the footage. You're a black man and you're perpetually angry. I mean, I think you're an angry black man. And it ain't got nothing to do with the stereotype. You're just an angry, volatile dude. But Jordan Poole was flourishing with the Golden State Warriors. The guy was averaging 20 plus points per night. He was more consistent. His role on that team was a good one. He was taking some of the pressure offensively off of Steph Curry. And I remember December 2022, January 2023, Jordan Poole was thriving. Then reportedly there was another incident occurred between him and Draymond Green, and his level of play leveled off precipitously to the point where he became very erratic, and ultimately he was traded to the Washington Wizards. I think if the organization had chosen Jordan Poole over Draymond Green, they would have had another asset on their team, which, by the way, ultimately, in the post-Curry era, they could have possibly used to acquire a valuable talent. The same thing, I think, goes with Jonathan Kuminga. Now, I know that the standard line is that Jonathan Kuminga doesn't fit the offense. Bullshit. I don't think that's the real reason why he's not playing. According to what I've read, the real reason why he's not playing, or at least the initial real reason why he wasn't playing, is because he did not, and his agent agree to the $30 million offer that the Warriors gave him. They wanted $35 million minimum. And I think as a result of that, they're trying to reduce his market value by not playing him. Or at least that was the plan. But then Steph Curry went down, and now they got a feat. They have no choice. Steve Kerr has to throw everything out there to try to pull a win out of his ass. So you get Jonathan Kuminga yesterday, and what does he do? He scores 30 points on 11 of 18 shooting. And if it wasn't for, some of the miscues down the stretch, maybe the Warriors could have stolen the game without Steph Curry being on the floor and without that idiot Draymond Green, who did nothing but foul out and did nothing in yesterday's game for the most part, having problems guarding Julius Randle, but he's supposed to be a defensive player of the year candidate this year, and supposed to be a defensive stopper still, listen to the media. But yeah, Jonathan Kuminga, he's probably gone, right? More than likely. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. So that's another guy you're going to lose, who, by the way, if the Warriors kept, there's another guy they could have cultivated, and in the long run, in the post-Steph Curry era, could have gotten somebody valuable for him. These are the mistakes that the Warriors organization have made. Another guy that comes to mind, what was his name? James Wiseman? I forget his first name sometimes. That's another center. Now, I'm not saying he's a great talent, but he was a guy who showed flashes of being a serviceable player. But the problem was he didn't fit into what Steve Kerr envisioned with the small ball Warriors, Steph Curry team that's so Steph Curry heavy. You know what I'm saying? Because remember when Steph Curry first came a star, when they were the Splash Brothers, the Warriors didn't use Steph Curry so heavily. It used to be Steph averaging 24, Clay averaging 22, Sean Livingston getting some shots, Iggy was getting some shots, the bench was deep. But over time, it became more and more Steph's team and more reliant on Steph offensively. And I believe that what's happened is, and I think you're starting to see the first signs of it, age is catching up with Steph Curry. He's 37 years old. Now, what are the Warriors going to do when this guy gets older? I don't think Steph's going to retire this year, but is it really out the realm of possibility that Steph may retire after next year? At this point, it's not, retirement is not that far off. What are the Warriors going to do? Jimmy Butler's is what, 36, 37? Draymond Green is what, 35? You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this? Where are the assets? So you're choosing Moses Modi and Podziemski and Quentin Pope. These guys are not the type of players that's going to lead the Warriors to the promised land when Steph Curry walks out their door. So these are some of the mistakes I think that they have made over the years. And there's some others, but these are the main mistakes I think that the Warriors front office have made. And they've made a lot of them, honestly, since old boy left to go become an analyst for ESPN. So, or is it ABC? Whatever, both the same. But yeah, I'm telling you, man, I'm not the only one that thinks this, because I didn't used to look at it like that. But I have a lot of subscribers who are longtime Warriors fans who are pissed off at what Steve Kerr and the front office are doing, because they see the writing on the wall as far as this franchise is going to go down. Remember what happened with the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics of the 80s and early, they were a dynasty. Now, unfortunately, they lost Len Bias tragically. The Boston Celtics were way too loyal to Kevin McHale and Larry Bird and Robert Parrish for far too long. Then, of course, you had the tragedy with Reggie Lewis dying tragically. But they were so loyal and they were not building for their future that the Boston Celtics went from being the dynasty Celtics to, in Larry Bird's and Kevin McHale's and Rob Parrish's later years, a contender, but a little bit below the Pistons and later the Bulls, to being, after Bird and McHale and Parrish, bad. I mean, they were bad. They were bad in the 90s. They were, then Paul Pierce came and they were okay, but they didn't really regain that championship status and DNA until they made the big trades for Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, and then acquired, of course, Rondo. But that's 15 years later. So that's what I'm getting at here. Like, if Golden State isn't careful, and I know free agency is different now than it was 30 years ago, but if they're not careful, it's going to be a little bit of a lull, in my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you guys think.